would get hives, but they don't. That person has made a law for himself. He has a bad relationship with strawberries. And when he says strawberries give me hives, that's a command to his subconscious mind. And of course, when he eats strawberries, then the subconscious sees the strawberries coming down and says the boss wants hives, so it proceeds to give you hives. These are laws you make for yourself. Or you might say, well, I can't eat mushrooms, I get acute indigestion. Well, that's a law you made for yourself. Millions of people eat mushrooms and they don't get indigestion. You see, if it were a law, everybody in the world would suffer accordingly. So you don't judge according to appearances. The five senses report an avalanche of sights and sounds and sundry concepts, good and bad. But you're not a victim of the five senses. You can reject what you see, what you hear. You can see peace where discord is, love where hatred is, joy where sadness is, light where darkness is, life where so-called death is. You can discipline your senses, and you can taste the sweet savor of God, taste the truth like you taste an apple. Judge not according to appearances. You're here to separate the sheep from the goats, the false from the real. So the ragweed, some people say the ragweed gives them, asthma or hay fever or something like that. If that were true, that were a cosmic law, everybody in the world, when got in touch with ragweed, they would get coryza, and tearing, lacrimal ducts would begin to tear, and inflammation of the mucosa, and all these symptoms, or paroxysmal attacks. The same thing, like a person tells them sensitive to red roses, or allergic to red roses. If you hypnotize that person and put a glass of distilled water under his nose, and said, this is a red rose, well, now it's distilled water. He'd get all the symptoms right there in front of you. Now tell me, honestly, where is the allergy? Isn't it in his mind as a belief? Surely it isn't in the distilled water. He's probably allergic to his wife, or to his boss, or someone on the next bench or something. Don't you know that the ragweed and the pollen and all these things are the same substance as your own bloodstream? There's only one substance. God is the only presence, power, cause, and substance. Everything is spirit made manifest. So the ragweed, or what you want to call it, or the pollen, or the dust, all these are of God. Everything is spirit made manifest, for there isn't spirit and matter. Matter is the lowest degree of spirit, and spirit is the highest degree of matter. They're interconvertible, interchangeable, they're the same thing. So I visited Dr. Viktor Frankl of Vienna some years ago, distinguished psychiatrist. He was in Auschwitz, in a prison camp, He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He practiced what is called logotherapy. He's a medical doctor, distinguished psychiatrist. He and other doctors were imprisoned. Now, this is what he says. He was imprisoned with other doctors in Auschwitz, and he said, we were anxious to know what would happen, what would be the consequence. For example, they had to stand out in the open air, they took a shower, they had no clothes on, they weren't given a towel or anything at all. It was in the late autumn, the weather was very cold, and they stood stark naked and still wet from the showers. In the next few days, our curiosity evolved into surprise. We were surprised that we didn't catch cold. There were many similar surprises in store for the new arrivals. The medical men among us, he said, learned, first of all, that the textbook tell lies. They were angry because the textbook told lies. They didn't get a cold. They didn't get pneumonia. Somewhere it is said that man cannot exist without sleep for more than a certain stated number of hours. That's quite wrong. I had been convinced that there were certain things I just could not do, that I couldn't sleep without this, or I could not live without that or the other. We slept in beds which were constructed in tiers. On each tier, measuring about 6.5 to 8 feet, slept 9 men directly on the boards.